Viewers, Pakistan appears to have thrown restraint to the wind. There has been a marked increase in cross-border infiltration leading to serial strikes on Indian soil. The most damaging of the attacks happened on June 9th, on the day that Prime Minister Modi was taking oath for a third term. Hindu pilgrims were targeted, and even as the nation was coming to grips with the dastardly attack, more Islamist terrorists struck. The attacks have almost all been concentrated in Jammu. Viewers, many people will look at these strikes and wonder what is behind Pakistan's newfound appetite for bellicosity. Think about it, viewers. These have been serial attacks. They have come at a time when, in fact, the government is just about renewing its pledge with the Indian people. And perhaps with that renewed pledge, it might also think about renewing options when it comes to interlocuting with neighbors. Pakistan would have observed that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian government invited all heads of state from the extended South Asian geography except for Pakistan. Why wouldn't Pakistan want to, in some way or the other, ingratiate itself with New Delhi, especially when its own economic and political stability is being called into questions? Well, Pakistan's newfound appetite for bellicosity has sparked a massive debate in security circles. Many have pointed out the need to engage Pakistan, and others have talked about punitive action. The talks route is tried and tested. In fact, some high-profile initiatives ended in failures. Here's a flashback. We all know, viewers, that in 2014, Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was invited for Prime Minister Modi's swearing in. In 2015, Prime Minister Modi and Nawaz Sharif met in Ufa, and there was some bonhomie visible between the two at the SCO summit then. In 2015, India proposed a comprehensive dialogue. But viewers, just when things were looking up, the Pathankot air base was struck in January 2016, Uri camp in August 2016. In 2018, Prime Minister Modi congratulated Imran Khan on his election victory. 2018, Modi proposed resumption of meaningful and constructive talks. Again, there was momentum building towards bilateral talks, at least at the foreign external affairs ministers level. But then, viewers, you had a dastardly attack. The JEM attacked the convoy of Indian security forces in Pulwama. We all know what happened. Then, when Prime Minister Modi returned for a second term, there was once again an attempt, this time from Pakistan's side, to try and mend fences, pick up the threads of a conversation. But that also failed. And you know the reasons. So if talking with Pakistan is only going to incentivize its bad behavior, make it think that it can continue from a position of strength, let's say, to bleed India, what are India's other options? But before we examine those, let's first investigate why Pakistan is feeling so emboldened. Let's begin first a conversation with General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. General Malik, thank you for speaking to me on The Crux. What do you put down Pakistan's newfound adventurism? What do you think it's because of?
Jai Hind, Rahul. It's always good to be able to interact with you on the news channel. We don't understand Pakistani polity properly in India, most of us, I would say, because we feel that Pakistan is being governed like India is governed by an elected government. Pakistan, yes, it has an elected government, but then that elected government is governed by Pakistan Army, and particularly when it comes to relations with India, security relations in India in particular, and when we talk about Jammu and Kashmir. And that is the main reason that our talks, whether initiated by us and sometimes initiated by the Pakistani political leadership, has failed. And whenever we talk of having peace with each other, whether it happened in '99 also, you will recall the Lahore Declaration. But then thereafter, we had to face the infiltration and the war in Kargil area.
Yes.
So firstly, we must understand that while Pakistani political leadership may want some kind of a friendship with us, some peace with us, but Pakistani army does not see that in its institutional interest. And that is why whenever we talk of peace, Pakistan army strikes either directly or through the proxies that it has in Jamaat-e Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba and such like outfits. So that is the main reason why now that we were going to have elections, now that we were going to have a yatra very soon coming, I think people in Pakistan army and its henchmen, they decided that this is the time to strike and create some kind of a security situation for India.
General Malik, there is also talk that perhaps a reduced mandate for Prime Minister Modi is emboldening forces inimical to India on the other side of the border.
I don't believe so, because even when the present government earlier had a good mandate, even then they continued with proxy war, and we had many such incidents which you have yourself narrated just now. So it's not that. I think it is just that the Pakistan army would not like to see Pakistan and Pakistan political leadership and our Indian leadership talking to each other.
And how long do you think this is going to persist, this attitude from the Pakistani side? I mean, their economy is in definitive turmoil. There was political turmoil. There's some people are even saying an existential crisis. Yet it doesn't seem to lose its appetite for wanting to play, the role of a destabilizer and provoke India. To what end?
Yes, I know. It's a question is absolutely valid, but personally, I believe that till the time Pakistan political leadership is able to control Pakistani army, like we have in India, that kind of a institutional setup, I don't see that happening very soon. And as long as we have the present situation where the Pakistani political leadership, whichever party it may be in that country, they're all controlled by the Pakistan army. So, as I said, it is in their vested interest for Pakistan army to continue with this. They would not like to see India progressing. They would like to create as many hurdles as possible from their side.
Do you believe Rawalpindi might even be under pressure from Beijing? Is it possible?
Look, we have to now realize that Pakistan is doing, particularly its security relationship, is totally dependent on what the China is dictating to it. And the strategic partnership, or I would say strategic dependence of Pakistan on China is huge today. And therefore, we should never ever rule out this kind of a cooperation between Pakistan army and the Chinese. And it is quite possible they are already sharing intelligence with each other. They are sharing as much information as possible, and they are quite capable of doing whatever whatever the PLA or Chinese political leadership tells them to do.
General Malik, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for your insight. As always,
Is this glue? That's ice. I can't talk and concentrate at the same time, so bear with me.
Very impressed by your artist.
No, it's really not that impressive work. My wife is the arty one.
It's a bit like watching the generation.
And my children
haven't had anyone.
my children are arty than I am. It's all right.
Vivek Kaju, former secretary of the MEA, and of course, Sushant Sareen, senior fellow of the ORF, a very close watcher of events in Pakistan. Now, let me first begin with you, General Asnan. I want to ask you this question in all earnestness. Look, there are people who say we must resume a civilian as well as a diplomatic dialogue with Pakistan. That's the only way we can overcome trust deficit and so on and so forth. So first of all, sir, do you think, A, this is the right time? Do you think that would be, in fact, the right approach with Pakistan?
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for inviting me for your very important program. Always a pleasure to be on your channel.
Pleasure, sir.
I fully agree with, you just can't differ with what General Malik just said. I endorse every word he said. And as to the specific question about the timing, even if there have to be talks at any time, they can't be under duress. And this is the kind of thing which has happened now. Obviously, Pakistan is attempting to make a statement. To make a statement saying Jammu and Kashmir is not under your control. You may have succeeded in your democratic exercise in the last 2 months, and a new government is in place, but at the end of the day, we still have our narratives in Jammu and Kashmir. That's the message which is clearly going out from this. But we must almost also keep in mind what General Malik just said, that there are different layers which control policy in Pakistan. And I'm sure Mr. Kaju will probably explain this even more. But there exists the deep state, and the deep state itself is layered. The political leadership there does not have that kind of empowerment to take these decisions. And wherever in the past we have attempted to do so, we have always come a cropper. We saw what happened in Pathankot, we saw with Uri, we saw with the Pulwama and things like that. While one only issue which I would like to introduce into your discussion and debate is, we must keep in mind that this kind of war that we are involved in, General Malik very rightly called it the proxy war. I'd add another word to it, the proxy hybrid war. And proxy hybrid wars do not produce peace and, the anti-peace overnight in any way. You have to go through a very, very painful process, and it takes a fairly long time. So what we are seeing is one of the dynamics, the ups and the downs of a typical hybrid war.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Vivek Kaju. Mr. Kaju, we've seen a public backlash against the Pakistani army, especially when the last round of general elections took place in Pakistan that saw the ouster of Imran Khan. And that was quite unprecedented in nature. There were days of chaos on the streets. We saw the ISI headquarters. We saw other installations in the military being overrun by civilians. Some say, of course, they were motivated cadre of Imran Khan's party. Be that as it may, yet the army there is persisting in perhaps risking its credibility even further by provoking India. Why is this happening?
No, I don't think the army perceives that it is risking its credibility. I'll put out a few propositions before you. One, I do not believe that the Pakistani political class is in any way less inimical to India than the Pakistan army.
Oh.
Pakistan's ideology itself, which is the two-nation theory, ensures that while the army considers itself as the guardian of this ideology, the political class's animosity to India is also deep. yes, on certain sections of Pakistan's civil society feel that they have to make up with India, that this can't continue ad infinitum because they are suffering. But if you poll the majority of the political class, they are very macho because they are committed to this two-nation theory. That is, and if they want to do something, it's tactical in nature. Second, I do not think that the Reasi attack was not deliberately timed for Prime Minister Modi's inauguration. I take you back to 2014 when, before the Prime Minister's inauguration, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, I am quite confident, under the ISI's instructions, attacked the Indian Consulate General in Herat.
I
And
see.
it was very fortuitous. It was extremely fortuitous that that attack had failed. They had come fully prepared to lay a long siege. They wanted to rain, as the Americans say, on Mr. Modi's parade. I see the same thing here 10 years later. Then they did not succeed because we were lucky. In 2019, I think the Pakistan they knew that India was in a very belligerent mood. Balakot had just happened, so they held their horses because the Pakistanis calibrate terror. And but this time around, I think two factors are significant. One, the turnout in the Lok Sabha polls in the valley was significant, and that has not been to the liking of the generals. And more importantly, they want to send a message for the upcoming assembly elections. So, all told, we must always remember that the Pakistan army,
Yes.
its basic instinct is inimical. They want to keep us off balance. They are not so much. They feel that they can manage the situation because having nuclear weapons, no one wants to really send Pakistan down the tube. They have this assurance,
Right.
and hence we've tried everything for 3.5 decades. I'm afraid we haven't succeeded in staunching Pakistani terror because unless the terror crosses a threshold, I think the doctrine of preemption that we announced after Pulwama is not invoked.
Right.
But let us not forget, it was fortuitous that this particular attack on the bus resulted only in 9 fatalities.
Yes.
There could have been very much more.
That's
And
right.
God forbid, had there been, say, a large number of fatalities because the bus was crowded.
Yes.
And then what would have happened? That day, there would have been an outcry in the country demanding action. And it would have been a day when Mr. Modi was taking oath.
Yes.
So, it was deliberate. I mean,
Right.
therefore, that is why I've correlated it to 2014.
Okay, so now viewers, let's get to Sushant Sareen and start talking about options, and then pivot the conversation back to our guests on this issue. But before that, Mr. Sushant Sareen, we are always constantly reminded whenever the Sharifs come back to power that, oh look, they are the blunt edge really of the knife that Pakistan wants to wedge into our ribs. And that somehow we should reciprocate, etc., and things will change. They are businessmen, they are more pragmatic, they are not burdened by all this sort of Islamist ideology, etc., two-nation theory, what have you. A, on that, your comment, and B, what are our options? How do we progress?
Rahul, one of the biggest problems in India is this kind of delusion which affects most Indians when they start analyzing Pakistan. Most of them do it as a hobby, None of them actually study it very carefully. What are the origins of the Sharifs? What is their mindset? What is their ideological predilections? what are the kind of statements they have made in the past, what are the kind of forces they represent in Pakistan. Nobody does this. So somebody will make a comment that we want trade with India. Oh wow, we'll have trade with India, as though trade with Pakistan is going to make us into some kind of Switzerland or Norway or some other country. Like, it's madness. The way the Indians react, I don't know what kind of inferiority complex affects these kind of people, that they feel that until and unless you have a Pakistani, you're supping with a Pakistani, there is no future for India, which is utter nonsense. As the last 20 years have proved, that we've gone from, or the last 30 years in fact, that we have gone from strength to strength, and the Pakistanis have gone from a ditch to a deeper ditch. So this whole thing about the Sharifs being these really nice guys with whom you can do business. Look, on the day the messages were exchanged, I had tweeted something. I don't know how many people got it. But I said, look, there was this very terse kind of a tweet which came from Shahbaz Sharif, and Mr. Modi reacted to it in the same manner. And then there was a slightly more effusive kind of a thing which came from Nawaz Sharif, and Modi responded to it likewise. But anybody who studies Pakistan knows that both these brothers play good cop, bad cop. One guy will blow hot, the other guy will blow cold. This is their standard operating procedure. So if you are going to be falling for this nonsense, then you are the patsies, not they, right?
Right.
So let's be very clear about this. On the options thing, look, I've been of the view that this one-off kind of retaliation which we have done, this doctrine of preemption that Ambassador Karju was mentioning, I believe in the doctrine of preemption and prevention and retaliation. But the thing is that it has to be honed into something which automatically kicks in. When you start deciding, okay, fine, 9 does not cross the threshold, but maybe 15 would have. Even Pulwama, nobody was sure that when the bomb blew up in Pulwama, that it would blow the whole bus and over 40 people would be killed in that particular attack, right? Normally, when these kind of suicide attacks happen, 5-10 people die, maybe a score are injured, and that is where it all ends. Would that have satisfied your threshold or remained below your threshold? So you have to start understanding that thresholds need to be now lowered, number one, both for political reasons as well as for strategic reasons. Number two, you must put in place systems which kick in automatically to retaliate. Retaliation in itself is not going to end this menace. That's not going to happen, because the Pakistanis are constantly trying to tell you that even though we are down and out, we are bankrupt, we don't have money, but we are going to stay in the fray, that we will fight to the end, that don't think that we are no longer, in a position to stand up to you.
Yes.
You have to disabuse them of that. You have to disabuse them of that both directly and indirectly. And let me give you one suggestion. This is a time when the Pakistanis are increasingly getting embroiled on their Western front. The last thing they really want is a very active, hostile Eastern front with India. Activate it. And the moment you activate it, you make them pull their troops out from the Western front to the Eastern front, leaving large gaps out there. Fine, let's do it. If you want to play the bloody game, let's play the bloody game.
Okay, let's open this up. General Hasnain, you see, what happened post-Pulwama was that we kicked in this doctrine of preemption, which knocked at least visibly some sense into the Pakistanis. The problem was, of course, that we've now whetted the appetite. We all expect something game-changing once again to happen. But there is also a lot of stake for Modi in Kashmir. He has brought in certain transformative changes, and he wants them to succeed because through that flows his political discourse. So when you're constantly provoked, what is the break point for Prime Minister Modi when he says, that's it, no more?
See, Rahul, first of all, as Sushant just said, the threshold today, there is no defining line. The threshold is very fuzzy. It is absolutely grey. Perception-wise, it can differ. Everyone can differ on what their threshold of tolerance as such is. Keeping that in mind, I would say to be in a position of advantage, because this is not going to end. As I just told you, hybrid war does not end overnight in this manner. And if you strike once, twice, thrice, preemptive or anything, he's going to do the same thing to you. So we can do this as a message and expect that something will come back to you. The more important thing I think at this time is you must secure yourselves better. The start point should be to secure yourself better and then think of striking at the same time. You see, there are too many chinks in our armor at the moment. Troops, the Kashmir Valley is well secured. The infiltration areas, routes are all secured. It's difficult. Why is all this happening in Jammu? Because Kashmir is so well secured, making an infiltration bid, coming to strike in Srinagar will take you 10 to 15 days before you can really get your act together. Jammu's area is completely different if anyone knows the terrain. The IB sector needs a 10-kilometer march from the IB to the main road, the Jammu-Pathankot road. So you have to secure yourselves better. We have lifted troops from here earlier. We have brought back troops. I want to assure you, we have brought back troops here. I've spoken to the commanders on the ground. I know that the same troops may not be here, but there are enough troops at the moment here. We have to secure ourselves better. We have to make sure that our counter-infiltration grid in the Jammu sector is much stronger than what it exists today. At the same time, the command and control. There are issues of command and control here. I'm not sure if you're aware, if our analysts are aware. You know, there's a division of responsibility as far as Jammu is concerned.
Right.
You know, it is between the Western Command of the Indian Army and the Northern Command of the Indian Army. And this remains a grey zone at all times. This is ever since 2005.
Yeah.
And this area has not suffered after 2008-9. So as a result, we have just let things go as they are. We need a review of this completely.
Okay.
Then, of course, there are other aspects such as the ceasefire. The ceasefire is in place for the last 2.5 years, approximately from 24th of February 2021. Who suffers with the ceasefire going up in flames? I think we are a stronger power. We have greater arsenal. We can make things very, very difficult for him.
And absorb.
And as Sushant said, just 10 seconds more, Sushant, what he said, Pakistan has got 3 priorities. Kashmir, internal security, Afghanistan. It keeps meandering between them.
Right.
If we make sure that this area is ratcheted up, it will affect his internal security, it will affect his capability of handling Afghanistan. That is what is going to hurt him.
A de facto two-front. I think we've had a very informed discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. We leave it at this, viewers. Thank you very much for watching.